All right. Welcome everyone to the summer edition of the Lead Educator Development Series. This is our June session. Our training focus today is around Business Center best practices. We did this training focus 2 years ago already about this time of year, and it was one that on our feedback survey was highlighted as one of their favorites or the top session. We should do this every year. So we are bringing that back again because we're approaching year end. I know that the Business Center just hosted a system-wide Zoom session for everyone to go through some of those best practices, but Ruby's here with us to give us more specifics for the lead educator role and things that lead educators really want to be paying attention to as we wrap up the end of the fiscal year. To kick off our time together, as people are still jumping on and joining us, again, I invite you to put your camera on if you're able. We are going to go to our check-in, which you are invited to unmute or throw in the chat as everybody's getting on. Name your favorite summer activity. Maybe something you've already done the last couple of months, something you're looking forward to end summer. Summer officially started yesterday, actually, technically. So favorite summer activity, whether you have done that already or you're planning on it in a little while. So like I said, you invite you to unmute or throw it in the chat as we get started. Got hiking and biking and swimming, taking the kids to the pool, yes. Camping, gardening. Yep, coffee in the morning, absolutely. Coffee outside, absolutely. And weeding. Oh, Nancy likes weeding. That's so nice of you. Yes, grilling, the opportunity to grill, eat outside. It can be therapeutic, weeding, just like cleaning, right? It's like you get to see what you accomplished right in front of you. It's instant gratification. Lots of gardening, summer festivals. Yes, there's lots of those going on all over, especially June. Yeah. Can I get a county fair on this list? We're coming up here, right? I mean, seriously, that is still my favorite time of year. That's the thing that got me into extension, is because as a kid, county fair week was my favorite time of year. Also, probably because the Gage County Fair was always around my birthday, so it felt like everybody was throwing me a big giant countywide party. So maybe there's a tie-in somehow. All right, lots of great summer activities. Awesome. Well, as I mentioned, our training focus today is around the Business Center best practices. We're going to talk about year-end financials, open it up if anybody has questions about extension board budget planning, because I know that's happening right now too. We'll go into our idea share led by Lisa, and then we'll have a lead educator briefing with Dave. He's got a list of topics to go over with our lead educators today. And we always leave with what needs do you have currently? How can we support you in the lead educator role? And or what questions do you have right now? So this time I'm going to turn it over to Ruby to go ahead, and I will stop sharing so that Ruby, you can take it over. And we'll go from there.
See if I can share what I need to share here. Okay, hopefully I'm sharing. So thank you, Megan. Again, I'm Ruby Urban. I'm the director of the INR Business Operations for Off Campus. And I'm going to share some of the information that was shared last week, but also just kind of build on that a little bit for what you can do in your lead educator roles to help us, especially when we get to the fiscal year end items. So with that, and again, they did send out the PowerPoint. I think your staff have it. If you don't have it, specifics are going to be a lot more in that presentation. I'm just taking the highlights of that. So with this, I'm just going to go and remind people about the, move some of this stuff out of my way, sorry. About the email that Pat sent on June 9th. There's a lot of bank deposit reminders. There's a lot of hard deadlines that we need. And we also know there's staffers involved with a lot of activities, and there's a lot of people who are sometimes on leave. So just to ensure that these items are being done by the date, or somebody is following up to ensure they are, such as the bank deposits and so forth. The most important one we want to focus on is just those deposits. That's really a hard deadline. So in case somebody is out of the office, we also know that that's going to be a long weekend right before June 30 with the 4th of July. So just ensure those deposits are being made and the staff there is aware of all those deadlines. Just going to go through some of these fast because it's repeated in the other document. One cash handling I wanted to remind everybody, and to go back to your offices with your supervisors, is the cash handling piece of this. Make sure that any UNL employees or our county paid extension staff are signing those cash handling policy and procedures. But reminder that our temporary workers who are not employed by UNL or any volunteers should not be handling cash for the university. So just a reminder on that, because this is the time of year we may have other people helping us out, but best practices, we need to keep the cash handling on the side of our extension employees. And Megan, would you monitor the chat if there's anything you see there? Thanks. Invoice processing, that's just the timing again about the June 30. We need to have those into our easy boxes. These are again some dates. I'm not going to dwell on those because they should be on the other presentations your staff has, but we are being insured for accounting through August. Actually, anytime we have an invoice, accounting wants to know when that good or service was delivered. So that's a key piece because they're watching those dates. So if you have an invoice that you bought something on the 27th of June and we get it like July 18th, they're going to be watching when those expenses hit, and they're going to determine whether that becomes an accrued expense or, a deferred revenue on our deposit side. The dates are very important. So that's just a reminder about writing those on invoices. Purchasing card transactions. I'm going to spend a little more time on that because that is a huge one for us to do our business. And thing we need to do to remind ourselves is those need to be turned in a very timely manner. We do have a hard deadline. If the vendor does not process that transaction by June 30, it's going to go on your July business. So just so you know that if you think you bought something on June 30, if the vendor doesn't process it that date, it will not be in this current fiscal year. And I wanted to talk about transactions submitted. I thought it was kind of interesting. I have an access to university-wide document transactions, and just to the GNBC that we've processed, approximately 4,600 of our P cards come from extension that we support. Just talk about the GNBC, and that's a lot. We have 7,300 total. So extension is about 65% of all of our P card transmissions that we run through the business center. What we're seeing though is about 20% of those, which is 1,000, have issues. And we're thinking about all the sales tax, non-compliance, lack, and the emails are going back. We're trying to figure out ways to be more efficient. And I want to encourage all of our P card holders to possibly go back and review the guidelines, make sure things are in a good form before they send it to us, because of we're spending a lot of time with a lot of emails back and forth because of 20%. We got 1,000 emails and that's just the P card piece. I'm not talking about deposits, just the P card in. And it seems like when I get a monthly aging report, our challenges seem to be with online orders. And I can understand online orders do present a challenge because you are not supposed to turn in your documentation until you receive your items. But what we are saying, it can be 30, 45 days, and we still don't know. Number one, we don't know whether the person's received it. Because on the P card voucher, if you don't have it turned in within 15 days, we're asking, can you please notify us on a status? But then the challenge is we're just not knowing because we're not getting a response back from some of our P card holders to let us know what is the challenge, or what can we do if it's a purchase that was returned. But anyway, I wanted to bring that forward because I would love if you could go back and talk to your P card holders and say, please, please help us be able to expedite these type of transactions. One of the challenges, I'm going to get to my next slide here, is we have to reconcile every P card pending item that we have right now in our system has to be reconciled June 30. I have some back in January that still haven't been resolved. I'm very concerned. So I really need all of your help in talking with staff to ensure that they're getting that in. What I've asked my team to do, and they're very patient, they'll send out one email, they'll send out 2 emails, they'll send out 3 emails. And I told them what we need to do now, because we're in critical time. Any email sent going forward, we need to copy the supervisor, because we need immediate action to determine what to do with that pending transaction. And I want to make sure there's an awareness of the timeliness and the importance of that as we want to do our best business practices. So, and I also had coached our team. It would be really nice when you're sending an email, please put an expectation of response. I think 3 business days is sufficient, as long as the people are there to say, this is the issue I need to know by Friday X date. And if we don't hear from them, then we need to escalate it. I said, if we're contacting somebody 3 times, I need to know, because we need to be addressing those. And I think we've gotten a little behind in our patience, because when we do go through an audit, we're going to be looked at our aging report and why aren't we reconciling? So I want to thank you for whatever you can do on your end to help us continue to kind of work on that. So does anybody have any questions on those P card? I will say today, please don't buy chickens. I'm just dealing with one now. Using a P card for chickens and live animals is not appropriate, because we get into IACUC and it's a live animal and we're reselling it. So I've got to deal with that one today, I've learned about. So there's things, if our people could review the P card list, would be very helpful. I'm just going to go into like the travel, it's getting to the time of year if you've got in your travel reimbursements, non-travel. I had talked with the staff. They have updated some of the guidelines on completing your blanket TAs. So hopefully Monday or Tuesday next week. I know Pat Neben is on vacation this week, but I want to ensure that you have those blanket TA instructions, so everybody can go in, request their blanket TAs for the next fiscal year. So that should be coming out shortly. And this was part of the presentation they did back on the June 9th, this reminder about, referencing that group mailbox reference guide that will tell you how to do the subject line and the packaging again. So if you have any questions of your staff, they can go to the website and find that guide. Just some reminders on our deposits we're seeing, and we've got to watch the reimbursement piece. And as we get new employees on board and a new staff, just to ensure that the university is not being used as a pass-through, because we are sales tax exempt. And also one of the exceptions, of course, what we call a pass-through, is when we're providing those goods and services that our counties are in reimbursing us for, such as our vehicle lease and our interns and our those kind of items we have a relationship with, and we're also knowing it's they're a sales tax exempt organization. When I say organization, I should say county government. But to go back and just remind people on the sales tax piece, and another note here, sorry. And should anybody use their card accidentally, because we do have a few of those, to ensure that if there's any reimbursement that needs to happen, what do we mean by reimbursement? Because sometimes what happens, we have to figure out who the external party was, or if it's an internal employee. As a lead educator, ensure that timely reimbursement is made by either the organization or the employee to cover the cost. either or, we'll need to pay sales tax if we bought a good. And we would include a 5% reimbursement because we're going to have to record that as revenue. We can't record it as a reimbursement. It will have to be shown as a revenue in your taxable sales. So that's also a note. But if you could just ensure that we've seen in those words reimbursement, we understand what that is. Oh, reminder on the on and offboarding. I know you have you have temps or interns, summer workers. Just ensure when we get down to, you know, the August timeframe and people are leaving, just let the GMBC know as soon as we can, because as we know, we got that executive memo on security and ending your services. So any heads up you can give us is really appreciated in our compliance. And Megan, one of the ones you had noticed kind of the salary savings use. I kind of went back to a slide we had before. If Dave wants to add more into this thought, but I just kind of copied what we've shared before on the first priority is backfill positions, professional development, curriculum, like for like. So just kind of put it on the slide. I didn't know if there's other questions or if Dave would like to talk or share anything about that.
Continues to look like he's having audio issues for me.
Oh,
He's
darn. I didn't mean to catch Dave
Yeah.
off guard either.
I know, so I'm not sure he's with us right at the moment.
Well, and this one too, Ruby, this is kind of a reminder, because engagement zone coordinators continue to get these reminders about talking with educators with salary savings accounts and the spend down recommendations and the timeline for that too.
I think another thing, somebody had asked me this question at one of our meetings, and we were talking about supplies or when we're buying things and knowing sometimes our reviews that will be coming. I keep hearing at the university, they're coming to look at our stuff, and P cards are just a huge audit place they spend time in. If you're buying supplies or things for programming and you know that program, include a flyer or something about it, because 2 years from now, when that's pulled in an audit and it just says supplies for X, I do not know, or nobody knows what kind of questions when it is pulled randomly, what you might be asked. And if it helps spur your memory of maybe why something was purchased or questions, just include that extra documentation. I know sometimes we want to include too much, but I think sometimes when we can show some of our programmatic pieces, for example, I could, and I know I'm just going to throw this one out, like we're building something that seems like, well, why are they buying something like that? Just include the flyer, the announcement, and attach it. I'll say the P card voucher because most of the things come in that way. Trying to think, is there anything else, Megan, that I can help cover or questions people would have? I kind of went through it fast, but I know the main training document is out there and I didn't want to get into that.
Yeah, I was going to open it up for questions from the group. Anybody have questions about their follow-up from last week or the highlights that Ruby presented today?
And I'll just stop sharing because I think that's the last thing I had was questions. So there we go.
Ruby, this is Kelly Fian. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Like when I use somebody else's cost object number to charge something to, is that where we're saying we need to show documentation? We have permission to do that?
Yes. Yes,
So
especially on a grant.
But okay, but that's like I bought 4-H supplies and then I went and taught in another county. So the amount used for that county we charge to their cost object number, because that's. So would you just want an email from that person?
Yes.
In my mind, I always thought that if I charged it to somebody, then that person got a DocuSign to sign that it was okay. But apparently that's not the case.
No, we don't have the, to do that. So that should be happening in the office level. So your office manager, if somebody wants to do that, that's great. So they could take your P card and do the DocuSign from yourself to the educator or whomever, the PI, if it's a grant, to sign, and then it would go to our mailbox to process. That's great.
But otherwise, just an email saying they have permission for me to charge it, that works now.
That will work. We have run into, I mean, I'm going back to the grant piece. We have run into a few of those right now where we noticed there's, and of course, our staff doesn't know who's the PI on a grant. Most people, when we're reviewing this, assume who's ever sent it to is the PI, but when we let's pull, like, we're doing some NIFA audits and there's some other audits there, just to kind of remember if we are doing, be even nice to note if you are a co-PI on a grant, that might be a different number, because some of our grant numbers are not within our engagement zone. They're maybe in another department. So if you would sign your name and just know that you're a co-PI, that would be very helpful too.
I have a little bit of a different one now. So we have a cost object to charge mileage to Backyard Farmer too.
Okay.
But that's through fleet management, so I don't submit anything.
Nope. And then I worry, since it's Backyard Farmer, if it doesn't go through me to the GNBC engagement zone, I'm saying that's their thing to worry.
I'm not gonna worry about it then.
Yeah. Thanks, Kelly.
Ruby, I have more of a comment. So, and I did get mine around, but I think sometimes people get next where they're not thinking about their going out of state for like our national meetings in Iowa. And I think there's going to be some educators, new ones. It might be helpful when you send out that front blanket TA to kind of outline what's the extra thing you do to get permission so you can go out of state to a conference. Because sometimes, and it's not easy to find that information on what form do you fill out to give yourself permission to be able to go to a national meeting that's out of state.
So I'm trying to think where in your orientation for new employees, I'm throwing that out because that's something we normally would know right away. But as part of their onboarding, when they're learning to do their concur, that the expectation is anytime you leave the state of Nebraska or counties contiguous to the state of Nebraska, you really need your own individual TA. And that's every time.
Yeah. So what would be helpful is to just attach that form, that so they know what they need to fill out. Because I know when you go into Firefly and all that, you can find that, but for a lot of us, I don't go out of state that often. And so it's one of those things where it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot to do that, or I got to do that. So it's one of those, I think it's kind of a thorn in the side for some of our staff, because it's like, we don't have a fluid, how do you do this so that you can do this? And for those that work in it all the time, they probably think it's that way. The other part is I think sometimes we get a little bit sideways on this sales tax thing that makes it hard when you are trying to order. At one time, I thought that we didn't have a sales tax issue. It was below $20. Now it's like there's no you can't have any sales tax on it, and that makes it a challenge when you're buying small stuff.
Right. Yeah, there was never really they were saying how much effort, but then what happened is it started exploding that everybody started not doing sales tax. So we had to come back to say no, and we've got to document the why if we don't go back. But hey, Tom, I'm going to go back to your travel thing, and I don't know what resources Extension has up there right now, because everything right now there isn't a paper form or anything, and I don't know if there's the website, or can Lisa, is there something that it could be clear to say if you're going to a conference, that's usually a keyword. You're going to a conference, you're going out of state. That would direct somebody to some of those instructions, because then go through the Concur Firefly, what they need to do to do their own individual TA for that. And I don't know what's on your website now for those resources.
At this point, we have chosen not to try and create our own instructions for anything related to GNBC, because they change too often and it's not our response. I mean, that we feel like that is completely a question that we need one of your staff to help with, so we don't get it confused. So there's nothing there, Ruby, that would direct someone to know that they just go to Concur and create a TA to get that permission.
Okay.
So yeah, we need to figure that out, definitely.
Yeah, because Extension had a website link that said travel. We really didn't do that piece, because the GMC doesn't have any guidelines on it. It's kind of what, like you just said, Lisa, it's whatever the Concur people have. So maybe it's even just the website to tell people if you're going to a conference, go to this site. But I don't know. I mean, we wouldn't really develop anything, because again, we don't. It's kind of like that thing where the Concur lives in its own world.
Yes.
And as you said, things change, but I think
here's what Angie left up.
okay.
So if you go to new employee, she did leave something up. We talked about taking it all down because it caused some confusion, but this is still up as of right now. If you go to faculty and staff and go to travel resources, there are some FAQs here for parking, for mileage. It gets you to the tutorials for Concur, which for me is about the best thing for people to use because it just walks you through them, and some other basic things that we have on travel, but not. And here's Todd, here's your submitting
Yeah.
for that, but it's not very detailed and it doesn't tell you exactly, because once again, it's hard to keep all these things the same. So I think from here you go to your business center person. And I'll be the first to admit, training around all of GMBC from my end is I struggle with it because Ruby and I've talked about this extensively. They're so swamped, their time for training is limited, but yet people need to know how to do these things because it is why are there this many P card problems? Because I don't feel that we do enough to help people understand how to do it, but I don't know where we fill that gap. So,
well, and I think too, like said Lisa, there are P card training ongoing all the time. And I think we just needed, years ago, P card used to go every 2 years, you had to go to training before they renew your card. And so what had happened, just because of over time, nobody, and it's so easy for everybody to forget what that is. So in some ways, I wish they'd almost make it mandatory again, as after even a 4-year refresher. So I think even as a office activity, it would be nice to go to the website and review some of those things and cardholder responsibilities and just make that, one of those meetings. On the whole travel piece, and I think, Todd, that's where your good question is just, if on the board, it says if part of the training part is like about conferences. Again, you don't go that often. That's it's different than the blanket TA. What a person can do when they're sending out the reminder, just to remind people, if you're doing a specific conference, you have to do a separate TA through the system. And for the GMBC doesn't do the travel training. They've got those travel training offered, as you know, by the Concur people. All we do is review financials as they come through to make sure that the cost objects are right, and that's about part of it. And it's more in the admin support people that spend some of those times that are your travel delegates. So again, those are good resources to reach out and talk to when you have the questions. So no, thank you for bringing those things up.
Okay, well, thank you.
Might add something, Ruby, and it's just a situation where I didn't even stop to think for a little bit. I got it done ahead of time, but I was actually traveling to Kansas City and had to go overnight for a conference to present at. But I was meeting somebody in Lincoln. So technically I didn't need mileage reimbursement out of state, but I was going to be consuming meals out of state. The hotel was taken care of, but the meal part. And so I went in and did the pre-trip request and only included what, the items that I would be asking for reimbursement for, which would have been mileage to Lincoln and back. And then the per diem for meals that would have been, for the entire weekend we were there.
No, yeah, good point. Because that is, when somebody else is paying for some of those, you're not thinking of that, but I'm really leaving Nebraska. And again, the conference piece or whatever, that's a key part of that.
Well, and one thing I was told is that even if you're not paying for anything on an out-of-state trip, you should still do a travel request because that's how insurance covers you, is through having that.
Good to know, Angie. There's a question in the chat from Jordan about when P cards expire, do we need to request a new one or will one be automatically sent?
The pre-card team monitor and they send them out automatically. So we don't have to do anything on our end.
Okay, great question. And then Angie had asked a question about online submission for if there is conversation, maybe. Angie, I'm interpreting this question, so feel free to jump in around, creating a system for online submission of P card vouchers rather than the DocuSign system.
I will answer that. Because of extension and the way we have to approve, and because we can't do all or nothing, and we've got our county paid employees are not university employees and don't have access to Firefly for submissions and things, to keep it consistent and our extra review, because of our county financial, we're not doing the online new button. And I think that's when we get new people on staff, you see that, hey, I can do this. We've got to stop them because there is no review of paperwork. And that's the biggest challenge, because if you hit that button, it doesn't come to the GMBC. It goes to accounting. And accounting does not want to, when I just said 20% of our items are incorrect, that's 1,000 right now that we are following up on. They don't want to do that. And neither do we in a way, but But that's why we're trying to help filter and hopefully educate and find those. So when they do get to accounting, they're ready to go.
Ruby,
One idea I did have, and I know goes back to our structure before we got to online and pandemic time is if there was a way, some of those you who have office staff, go back to if they would review it for you, because I know a lot of people are submitting their own paperwork. I think sometimes it's good to have a key person in your office review things for completeness to ensure before it gets to the business center that it is. In some ways, it sounds maybe not very efficient, but it would help us expedite things when they come to us, thinking of us like the accounting office, that if somebody would be very well versed to reach before it's uploaded into our mailboxes, it has everything. It's another set of eyes. Because I think that's why we're having some of our challenges of just going back and forward. And then I'm also thinking, if there's even point people in a certain county office, that we could ensure this office manager, somebody is talking that educators. I know you're out and about, you're doing things to help us follow up. And I think that's the challenge with our emails is the responsiveness. And let's say, and I'm going to use it. Let's say you have an issue or something. If you had a support staff person, I would just, if we could copy the support staff or somebody to help us. But then again, if we could route things in the beginning through somebody else looking through it in the office before it gets to us might help expedite too. I don't know. I'm trying to look for solutions to go down from 1,000 emails to what can we do to help all of us.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
I don't think anybody really knew that number. Is there something, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, is there a couple things that stand out to you that continue to make them wrong and hold them up, that if you could fix this or this, that would eliminate a lot,
Yeah, it is a sales tax one. It's just not including the sufficient, documentation or forgetting pieces of it. It's when we do buy food, maybe we get the list of people, but we didn't get the agenda. It's just the detail. And then, and also it's just the turnaround time because they're sitting on our aging report. And we don't, until we get that aging report and they appear, it's the ways going back to say, hey, can you, this is on the aging report, can you respond to me? We'd get nothing. And we don't know what we can do. So we're not doing another email. So even though I said that 20%, that's the first time contact. That's not the second or third email. And that's where I was feeling the pain for them. I says, I need to know by the third email because this is getting ridiculous, but we also need to start on our end. What can we do? Why are we using so many emails sometimes? If this second one, pick up the phone. And I'm going to encourage people to communicate verbally a little more. I know emails are documentation, but I'd rather have them call, have a conversation with somebody on your team, respond back to say, per our conversation today, you've agreed to return this paperwork by Friday, copy the supervisor, and then we have something a little bit more, hopefully we can all coach people on, but that's where I would like to get. So maybe we all can, be more efficient in some ways.
Yeah, I think that's good. I certainly, for me, it was P cards were a lot easier when I was in the York County office and there was an office manager that I could hand the receipt to as soon as I made the transaction. And that had changed drastically for me in the last 3 years because that was way more efficient. It just got done. Now it doesn't just get done. I have to do it and do all the things, right? So if you have that resource, I'm telling you, as someone who doesn't anymore have that resource, utilize it because it will completely change your P card game. To have people help you and support you if you have that option. So
Let's see, Ashley has a question here, and I said, hopefully within a week. The challenge is it's not just the P cards, the people are also processing journal entries and they're also processing invoices. And so, a lot of them try to certain days, they're probably in the inbox trying to do P cards. Then the next day they're trying to do, the invoices. Another reminder I will also note is as we collaborate more, something we're also seeing is how do we work internally just to remind us we can't move money. we have to identify transactions. And anytime you're collaborating with somebody and you're gonna like share some registration, you're gonna share something. If you're taking in some fees and you know you're gonna share it 50-50, or whether if you can do those deposits or something right out the front and put the money where it needs to go first. Because it's very difficult then when we have to go and move transactions. That's another coaching thing too, or sharing an expense. So anytime we can do those things up front, it's kind of a learning experience too for our new people, because it's not as easy to say, just move $300 and give it to Megan.
It works for me, but probably not for GNBC.
Okay.
Well,
I see Dave's kind of joined us. Maybe he's audio now.
yes, Dave, we have audio and visual, which is great. I am gonna wrap up our time here with Ruby, and thank you, Ruby, so much for being here today. Lots of great questions. Thank you all for your questions. Dave, if you had anything to add, I want to leave that option too.
I just caught the very last part of it, but I would just want to emphasize, please work with our business center staff on all aspects of business center operations, from P cards to accounting to personnel to HR. They have a lot on their plates, and business continues to pick up the university system, right? More grants, more personnel churn, all these things are happening. And we have a new state auditor, by the way. And so if you want to look back at the track record of the state auditor and going back a couple of governors, you'll note that he's very interested in auditing state agencies, including the University of Nebraska. So let's be on our A game and help each other and making sure we do our best on all accounts. I'll let you know a little secret that I do all of my own P card transactions, all of my own travel, just like the EZCs, because I want to be experiencing exactly what you all are. So I'm calling the business center and getting help just like you are. So we're all in this together.
And Megan, I'm going to forward you this PowerPoint if you want to do whatever with it, incorporate it in your reference materials.
Perfect.
I
Thank
do
you
have
so
one
much.
last request. Megan, I guess for the business office, for pesticide training season coming up, it's been a long issue. We have to provide we have to have cash on hand to make change for farmers who attend that. And it's really with cash handling policy and the limited amount of money in the cash box, we've asked for an increase, but that's been problematic for years. And so I know some educators use their own personal cash to make change literally for as long as I've been here. So that's something we need to figure out internally, that process, I guess. That would be this coming winter.
I know some of the counties have county funded change accounts, and then some counties have university bursar funded change accounts. So
yeah, we can't have county anymore because of our recent audit. So we'll be back to we'll have to use cash out of the UNL's bursars box. And then sometimes we're out of the office for multiple days. So that cash doesn't, anyway, it's hard to get it back. So it makes it hard to follow the cash handling policy is what I'm getting at.
I think, thank you for bringing it up. I know you got to finish up here, but I think that's something we can talk about. And again, if we need to increase, but no, thanks for bringing that up. So with that, Megan, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. And thanks again for the opportunity.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. As I said, we had some time for idea share and breakout rooms. I have our breakout rooms ready to go. And I'm going to share my screen so we get that question up there. I'm gonna turn it over to Lisa to introduce our idea share.
All right, thanks, Megan. So in your breakout rooms, we'd like you to spend a little bit of time, because all of you do some things to help you be more efficient in your role and balance your time. And really the reason this question came up today and to talk about is, as many of you may or may not know, I've asked all of our fully promoted educators to fill out a survey. And we have all of our exit interviews from the last year. And ironically enough, both of those, people leaving us and people who were fully promoted and are still with us, the one thing that continues to pop up in all of those surveys this time was the lead educator role and the continued struggle, I'll use that word, the continued issue of trying to be efficient and effective in that lead educator role with your programming role. And we all know it. We know that's why we've been doing more training and doing these quarterly pieces. And so what we'd like you to talk about is, we know there are ideas out there that you've adopted to be more efficient in your lead educator role and balance your time, whether that's delegation or how you do something. And so we'd like you just to brainstorm in your groups some of the things you're doing, and maybe come out with your best idea that we can share in the chat. That we can share with others on how you have made the lead educator role be balanced as a part of your extension educator role in the system. So take a little time in your groups. Megan, I'm not sure how much time you're gonna be able to give them right now, and we'll let you go have a little discussion around that.
That sounds good. We'll have about 5 minutes. I'm gonna open up all the rooms and then we'll come back. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully that was a good conversation. I never know when to hit the pause button on those breakout rooms, because very likely we cut you off in the middle of conversation, but also want to be respectful of your time too that we have allotted for this. And Dave's got a whole bunch of topics for us too, so I want to give time for that. So as we transition into our next topic, if you would, throw in the chat something that you learned maybe from that conversation, an idea that you have from your breakout room on being efficient in the lead educator role. And maybe you didn't talk about that at all. Maybe you talked about other things, and that's totally fine too. That's part of the purpose for that time together. So at this point, I'm gonna keep things moving, and we're gonna roll into our lead educator briefing with Dave. And Dave, if you need to share a screen, feel free. Otherwise, take it away.
All right, thanks. I'm just going to talk, no PowerPoint. So greetings, everyone. Sorry, I was delayed in joining you this morning. My lead topic is actually a lead educator role. So as you know, a lot of churn in the organization in recent years. A lot of individuals have been asked to step up, be lead educator or contribute in some way to the lead educator role. And so that's, as you know, all coordinated with your local AZC. But I just want to make sure that as an organization that we're not wavering or confused about the importance of the lead educator role at the county level. We have this amazing distributed network in Nebraska Extension, connected very closely to all of our counties, all 93. We're in the process right now of renewing the interlocal agreements with all of our counties. So the last time that was done was about 25 years ago. And the good news is we're about 75% complete with that process across the state. And the support has been amazing from our county boards due to the work that you do and your colleagues. It's clear that county boards really value what they see Extension bringing to the people that they represent. And so we don't want to let up on success, right? We don't want to take anything for granted. And so we want to keep that distributed model, those connections with stakeholders strong. So if you're new to Extension, you may not know that the funding that our county boards provide to your local Extension office is not required. It is not mandatory. In state statute, it says county boards may fund Nebraska Extension, right? So here we are, 110 years following the commencement of Extension in the state of Nebraska, the Smith-Lever Act, and we're still going strong. And it's all performance-based. It's all the value that's perceived by our county boards and the people we serve as to whether they want to continue to invest in us. So collectively, that's over $10 million a year. The county boards invest in Nebraska Extension, and all those funds are what you are aware. They support your offices, your support staff, many cases Extension assistance, some travel, all the equipment, those types of things. And so, and if you're a lead educator and your budget is $75,000 or $100,000, your tax budget, I'd encourage you every year when you do your annual report, if you're a huge contributor to that, say, hey, I'm part of or a contributor to making sure we've maintained this kind of support at our local county level, because it's really important to our success. If you look around the country at Extension programs that have went to more centralized or regional networks, not nearly as successful. as those have remained more local. So look at this. This is a great leadership opportunity for everyone in the organization. If you're new to Extension, what a great experience, really, to learn how to be a leader within Nebraska Extension. If you're a veteran Extension educator, you have a ton to offer the system. If you've been a lead educator for a while, you've seen a lot, you've experienced a lot, kind of the ebb and flow of budgets and support and various Extension board, members, a lot of things going on. So hopefully you've seen the value of that lead educator role over the time. As lead educator, you are considered the department head in your county. So your counties have department heads for roads and the clerk and the sheriff's office. They look at you as the department head within county government. So in so many ways, you are the face of Nebraska Extension to our local partner. So thank you for serving in this role. Where you have other colleagues who are part of this role, continue to encourage them to do that. Work with your EZCs to include others in fulfilling the responsibilities of the lead educator in your respective space. It's incredibly important to our success. Along with that goes extension boards, extension board membership. And so we're like about 6 months out from when we'll be replacing extension board members that are going off of your local boards. Don't underestimate the importance of having a strong, active, participatory extension board. I can tell you from my days in district director role, similar to EZCs today, when I walk into county board meetings or end extension board meetings, you can tell almost immediately what our relationship with them is, right? They know us by name, pretty cordial relationship, or in other situations you walk in and you feel like you're a stranger. You don't want it to be the latter. And so I'm encouraging you to start looking for extension board members to replace those who are leaving your board. I'd also encourage you, if you have extension board members who are complacent, who are not showing up for meetings, not fulfilling the role, that you find a way to just acknowledge that with them, and they can go on and do something else that they want to be actively involved in, and bring someone on to replace them that will be a game player, right? So when you recruit those board members, you're looking for networkers, you're looking for people well connected in the community. I always felt like when I recruited extension board member, I didn't want to recruit one person. I wanted to recruit many people in the organization. So it was one person that was so connected that they brought a lot of perspective and representation to the board. So people who are passionate, who are willing to advocate for Nebraska Extension, both the county, state, and sometimes the federal level, they are willing to put in the time to stay informed about what contemporary extension is, not what it was like when they were a 4-H'er, but what it is today and what it will be in the future, right? Show up. People who show up to the meetings, show up to your program so they actually can talk about the programming going on locally, right? And here's the deal. When we have extension boards who are not active, people who are not showing up, who are not fulfilling the roles, we are the ones that nominated them. We are the ones that ask. So 95% of instances across the state, we are the ones that nominate extension board members who serve on our local boards. We nominate those folks to the county board to represent us and the university. And so just ask that you just do everything you can to import among your colleagues and your current extension board members that these are expectations. All right, you want to have a strong board. We just can't afford to have meeting after meeting in some situations where we don't have quorum, where we're just talking about budget. In most cases, budget is such a small portion of an extension board member's responsibility. It's about programming, it's about advocacy, it's about supporting all of you, it's being able to tell the story about what extension programming is today. So just really take that to heart. Start recruiting now for those folks, those positions that you want to replace later this year. When in times of crisis, you're going to want strong extension boards, whether it's budget or politics locally, or you need a new facility, or you need some more staffing. And at that point, you're just behind the 8 ball. It's way too late to get out there and get the kind of support you need. So we're lucky in Nebraska, we have over 550 extension board members. And that NASEB group is growing in stature and being recognized at higher levels within the university. So let's do ourselves proud in making sure we have the right people in those seats. I was listening on the Board of Regents meeting early this morning, and a couple of quotes just caught my attention. So they were talking about good to great, which if you've read the Jim Collins book, you're familiar with that. And they talked about what the enemy of great is. Does anyone know what the enemy of great is? Lisa?
Isn't it the good?
It's the good.
The good.
Yeah, we're so content with the good. Kind of goes back to complacency. We're so complacent with the good that we never get to great. We never get to great. And then President Carter said something, someone said something about hope and luck. And he said, I don't believe in luck. He said, I do. He said, I have flown thousands of flight missions in my lifetime. And people have said, I have been very lucky, you know. And he said, I don't believe in luck. He said, luck equals hard work plus preparation. Hard work and preparation. He says, you make your own luck. And that's how you're successful in whatever you do. So let's leave you with that on the Lead Educator platform. So just know how much we appreciate everything you do. You are in pivotal roles within our organization. If you need help in any component of your Lead Educator role, talk to your EZC. We can visit. We want you to be successful in this role, and your success will lead to even more success for your local extension programs. And then one last thing I'll just mention quickly is we do have our searches open for program leaders. So in 4 program areas: water and cropping systems, livestock, RPN, and ag profitability. They all launched last Friday. They all close around July 5th. And so we're looking for strong leadership, in some cases, multiple program leaders in some of those program areas that will be beginning later this fall. So I encourage you to think about those roles if you're interested and that works for you. Or if you have folks in your office or on your respective teams or anywhere in the system that you think would make great program leaders, call them, email them, send them a text and say, I think you should pursue this. I think you should, pursue this and see if you're interested and help lead these teams. So it'd be really cool that all these program leaders are going to start as a cohort. I hope we have a good mix of relatively new, some veteran educators, specialists, good distribution across the state. I hope it's a good mix to, I hope, lead our teams forward in the future. And with that, I'll just say thanks again, everyone, and turn it back to you, Megan.
All right, great. Thanks, Dave. Any questions for Dave from the group?
If it's a real quick, or I guess challenge,
Yeah.
I would like, it'd be NASEB, county officials, and extension. There's a group of stakeholders that really don't fit or can't serve on extension boards when they live in an adjacent county, but they are really operate and live in our communities. And then they don't really get asked to serve on the county they live in because they're really living and operating in schools in our county. So we had that. I know you're aware of the issue that we had here, but that kind of just leaves a group of stakeholders out. I kind of feel in Nebraska Extension from serving on extension boards when they live across county lines, but are in our, in our towns. So
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Nathan, because that's, I was meant to mention earlier. So looking at the demographics in your county and really making sure your extension board reflects the diversity in your county or counties. So I'm thinking about race, ethnicity, age, gender, geography within your, representation within your county, a lot of different levels. What does a diverse board look like that truly represents your board and your county? And on that Nathan's note, one of the things that we can do, and a couple of things we can do, and we've talked a little bit about this in the Saline County situation, is that ask those folks to serve on advisory committees, get them connected to the extension board the best you can. In other cases, you might feel like, hey, they'd be a great extension board member in Lancaster County or wherever they reside too. So do a little referral to the fact that maybe they could serve on another extension board and serve Nebraska Extension as well. So thanks for bringing it up, Nathan. There's some hurdles there where we're aware of that we just haven't been able to overcome yet.
Thanks, Nathan. Just a reminder to everybody that our next session is scheduled for September 7th at 10 a.m. and you will be getting the official calendar invite for that here this afternoon. So that gets on everybody's calendars, and then also the recording and all the information from this session will be sent out as soon as that's available and on the Lead Educator website, which another reminder or plug that there is a Lead Educator resource page that exists on myextension.unl.edu and has things continually added to it for Lead Educator resources. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording.